Hi everyone, welcome to our show. This is James Shaw from Twin Creek Media, and
I'm Noah Barlow from Twin Creek Media.
Video. Video is everywhere on the internet these days, right? And in marketing and advertising is using internet more. The internet. They're using the internet, surprisingly enough. Using video more and more.
We're using video right now.
Yeah.
Wow. Exactly. So yeah, video. Go ahead.
Yeah. I'm just going to say that it's even for educational pieces like this or for promotions, video is easier and easier to do. So we're using a digital camera in front of us, a Canon R7 with a couple mics set up into a little board and into the camera. But you just use your phone. Like people doing selfies with their iPhones, just like this, half the time those videos are also pretty good. Yep. So low production value or low cost of production, I should say, but easy production. Software is easy to use these days too. So getting video content out there is more accessible than it used to be. So people are using them more on websites for business websites and consumer goods websites, and then taking that video piece and putting them out on social media, right? Because social media platforms love video content. Captions like our voices and transcripts are going to be auto-generated, using the social media AI. So even if people don't have the sound on, they're just reading the captions, reading the text that's been generated, which is often quite accurate. So that's even a better piece, and then you can kind of use that to further your brand message and your advertising. For sure. Using video. So also everyone has high-speed internet these days, so it's not like it's in the old days it was just too slow. It wouldn't stream properly, and now everyone can play it, even from their phones too.
From their phones too, which is really cool. And I think the interesting piece about capturing content these days, everybody has a camera with them on their phone, is that we're seeing larger brands also adopt some of that ad hoc content production. So making their high production video look like it was shot on an iPhone or look like it was shot on somebody's handheld, because it lends an air of credibility, and it lends a little bit of authenticity to the content that's being shared. And so seeing how it came from the consumer side, creating content and videos, tons and tons of content and videos. All of a sudden now it's coming down from the brand side as well.
That's right.
And they're creating content that looks similar to what consumers have been creating for years, because it lends credibility, it lends authenticity to the brand, and it's fun.
Yeah.
So it doesn't always have to be, a great R7 camera with high production value, or, a Red camera, or any of these really expensive high production pieces. It can be handheld. It can be, shot ad hoc and still resonate and still reach massive audiences. Yeah. So everybody has the ability these days to create great content. Yeah. And it comes down to that, halo piece of great content, and that's what breaks through more than anything else.
And for people watching that are business owners or marketing managers, this concept of pillar content. So what are the key pieces of content that you're producing that can be distributed across so many different channels, and then cut up into short form pieces like little sound bites or a quick quote, or something funny, something 10-second that loops, these little reels or these sort of things. What can you produce out of your main piece of content, and then distribute it and get so much life out of that, like the shelf life of a piece that you've put in thousands of dollars into producing something. You really want it to get seen by tens of thousands of people, right? So and it's not everyone likes writing stuff, even if they have Chat GPT. GPT. I always get that, but the letters mixed up. But the point is, sometimes talking is easier than writing. And if you can produce video and then also get a written piece out of it, and then get some social media pieces out of it, goes into your email newsletter, gets published on your website, you can turn it into a press release depending on the content. And there's just so many different pieces you can get out of one effort. right? One kind of subject matter.
And I think that's very interesting to explore the idea of, the 1990s, when it'd be very easy to put up a static website, radio and television piece, and maybe a piece of print media.
Yeah.
And those were your mediums. And, that was back in the day where the medium was the message. And now you can splice it up in 100 different ways, and you likely need to cover all of the channels that your audience is on.
Yeah.
So, you're splicing a piece into, like you said, Reels, TikTok Reels, Instagram Reels.
Yeah.
And you're also looking at, YouTube Shorts.
Yeah.
The list of content, I'm sure we can put up a little piece here afterwards. But the idea of splicing content to suit your audience across all the different channels is very interesting.
On that note of channels, because we get asked this a lot by business owners, and I'll put you on the spot here. How many channels should a company be on?
36. Exactly 36 different channels.
Should have been 42.
42 would have been a better answer.
Yeah.
Do it again.
But okay.
42.
Okay. Cut. Yeah. So that was a fake cut, not a real one. But 42. So, I always turn it back to them. I say, where are your customers?
For sure.
And they go, oh, right. Well, they're, middle-aged people, white-collar jobs, higher income level, major city centers in these industries, So, all right, well, they may not be all over TikTok then. Mm-hmm. Their kids might be, but they aren't, right? So do you need to put so much into that? No, of course not. Mm-hmm. Even Instagram, right? If it's a B2B service, like a professional service, do you have to be all over Instagram? Without knowing the particulars, I'm not going to answer that, but probably not. LinkedIn, which is like Facebook for business, I always use that example, is a much better choice than the popular generic social media channels, which people aren't in business mindset. When they're on there, they're looking at pictures of cats.
Totally. And it comes back to the...
You didn't know what I was going to say, but you had your answer ready. Cats. I love that.
It always comes back to, for me, right person, right place, right time. And that's marketing 101.
Totally.
And so where are you going to reach that right person, in the right place when they're ready to purchase at the right time. So these are all, the essentials of any good marketing.
Yeah. What are your business goals? Who are your customers? Let's identify them. And then what pain are they trying to solve? How does your product or service fit that pain solution?
Exactly.
And then choose the tactics. People often jump right to I need to be on Facebook. My Facebook page is terrible.
Totally.
It's but are your customers even on Facebook? Yeah. Even on social media? So it's there's a number of strategic questions that should be asked, and we're getting off topic, but this gets into the most critical part of marketing is starting the right spot. Yeah. Right. Don't start halfway through the process and then try to figure it all out. You need to start with strategy.
For sure. I often look at one of my favorite case studies that I like to bring up throughout my marketing career is that I had one client buy a lot of digital media, but they did not have a website. And so they had spent, and a lot to them was $50,000 on just banner ads and homepage takeovers and a bunch of different digital assets. And so the brief to me was, we need to create all these digital assets, and here are the dimensions, and it needs to relate to this message.
And they literally had no website?
They didn't have a Canadian website.
Okay.
And it was apparent that they didn't know what the purpose of the digital ads were, but just that their audience was there. And that was true. Their audience, which was males 18 to 24, were online. Of course, anybody knows that. But then what were we doing? Where were we driving them? And so that brings me to a really important point of any marketing campaign has to be, what are your drivers, which is obvious, the banner ads. But what are your hubs? Where are you driving them to? Mm-hmm. What happens when they click that banner ad?
Yep.
and then what are the outcomes you're looking for? So they knew the outcomes, they knew the drivers.
Yep.
They just didn't have a hub. And
Didn't have the hub. And without that, you can't measure the results of something.
Exactly.
So, which is the third piece. With technology, make sure you are measuring everything, because in the digital space, it's really easy to do.
Totally.
So, but people often, they treat it like old school media, like TV, radio, where you kind of put your message out there, you cross your fingers, and you're like, yeah, I hope people see it or hear it, and we wish for the best.
Yeah.
And there's my $10,000 or my $50,000 ad spend, and you kind of cross your fingers. With the digital space, everything's measurable. You should know your full funnel, from impressions to website visits to engagement and actions, and then to lead generation or sales if it's e-commerce, all the way down, so you know that you put $1 in up here, you have $10 exit at the bottom of the funnel. If you don't know that, talk to somebody. But you can figure it out. But that's someone in your company needs to be crunching the numbers and measuring performance.
Absolutely.
And it is easy to do on the digital space to figure that out.
That gets us to an important point here is, if you do crunch the numbers and something is missing, you have a lot of traffic to your website, but they're not converting. That sort of brings us to the topic of, what was it?
Well, conversion optimization, which is figuring out
user experience. That's
user experience. So, and when you're doing user experience, you can kind of A/B test things, right? So you have a group of people, they click on one ad and go to this page, but you can have another ad, similar, but you've changed something important, like headline or the image. You see which one is getting more activity, and then which page of your website is getting more conversions as well. So that user experience is really, UX is kind of known in the industry, user experience, but it's really a whole bundle of things, but it needs to be looked at. I mean, a couple things that we've noted in terms of website trends for 2023, navigation needs to be simple. People have the attention span of what?
Yeah.
So don't make things harder than they need to be. So if you have a lot of pages on your site, you need to have either a mega menu where they're listed nice and orderly, or some hamburger menu or a broad, main navigation, a wider main navigation that's just very simple with some main categories, and they don't have a drop down that goes infinitely with a flyout menu with another flyout menu, and you have 3 levels of stuff. People get lost. So the mega menu organizes things if you have that much information, which is a big expandable navigation with lists of things underneath it, or you can use just a simple top level nav. And once they click on that main page, the page they land on is almost like a secondary homepage that features those particular relevant items, right?
Interesting.
So just make the navigation simple.
That's key.
Nice photos and videos. So that's pretty obvious. That's a pretty obvious bullet point. But how would you expand on that in terms of 2023? What does a nice photo or a nice video mean?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I mean, I really feel that nice photos, nice videos mean it's clear, clean, easy to understand. Well lit is very important, but it's communicating your brand, as we touched on earlier. It's very important to have the content on your site resonate with your audience, but through the lens of your brand. So it's not completely disconnected. It's not, unless your brand is like super edgy and grainy, then you can have grainy, dark footage, kind of make it on brand. But I think it's important to sync with the website, to sync with the vibe of your brand, as opposed to just, having beautiful images. What's your brand vibe?
Let's say I'm a business owner and I'm like, but hiring a photographer is really expensive, Noah. Can I just use stock photos and grab them off the internet?
You can absolutely use stock photos and grab them off the internet. Often, if it's done in a way that doesn't connect with the brand, it will look cheesy.
Yeah. And sometimes you've done yourself a disservice by using subpar images that are so bad that you shouldn't even have them there.
Exactly.
Because it comes down to, is your website visitor or someone seeing that ad in a magazine or whatever it is, are they going to trust you more or less after seeing that ad?
Absolutely, especially today's consumers. they will trust you less if they know for sure that that's stock photography.
Stock photography. If it's too obviously stock.
And poorly photoshopped. So you can take stock photography and Photoshop it, and then create something new from the basic asset that looks creative, that looks on brand, and that fits with the rest of the site. But nothing's worse than taking raw, disconnected stock photography and just imposing that on your website. I think it really does a disservice to the brand and your audience.
And where the feel or the emotional connection is really off on some of them, like some of it's like a really glossy hero shot of some product or some scene, really nice focus and lighting, and then right beside it is like a little bit of a weird clip art, you know, a vector image of something, but it's a completely different art style. So you have photo, and then kind of cartoon, all of a sudden, or you know, photo in a weird little sci-fi graphic that you got off some stock website. So just be careful that to your point, where it needs to be on brand, right?
Absolutely.
That you're not going all over the place visually. Color palettes is kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, that goes into one of our points about less is more. From a design slogan, what does that mean?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to go back just for 1 second about the stock piece, only because I think it's important to highlight some of the clients that we work with are, you know, early stage, and maybe they don't have an actual photograph of their working prototype, or maybe they don't have a photo of their facility that they want to showcase, in which case you're rendering something, or you're creating something, or you're mocking something up. And that can be powerful as well if it's done in the right style. And you can use stock photography or stock people in order to augment that and give the vibe or the essence of what you're trying to achieve, as long as they're well selected. And a great art director or a great creative designer will be able to select the right photos and support you
That's
along
right.
that way.
And to be honest, we almost always blend custom photography with stock photography. But the objective is, does it look like stock? Is it screaming stock photography that I didn't take this picture myself? If it is screaming that, then beware. Right. But if you can, you know, mix and match your custom photography that you've done a shoot with, you know, on site in your own city with your own scenery and background, if it's outdoors, or if it's an office setting, that it just looks like your typical customer would expect, using your own people or your own products, that's so good. But you know, often you don't have quite enough, or you're in a pinch, there's a deadline coming up and you need a particular photo, then just grab something, make sure it matches on brand.
Totally. And I actually used an Illustrator once for one of my clients. They were still early in their concept. It was a restaurant, sort of indoor play structure, and it was really fun. So we used an illustrator who had a fun illustration style. He also did children's books, and I had him illustrate the instructions and a lot of the interior
That's really cool.
visuals, and you know, because we couldn't photograph within the facility,
right?
So helping people understand how the gameplay worked, and you know, how to navigate the interior space using illustrations. So there are a lot of ways around not using stock photography, which you know, can be also very cost effective. I mean, that whole project was well under the budget of what a photo shoot would have been.
Right.
So you know, very powerful ways to work around not using stock photography. So
and that's a good point, because I on the illustration side of things, sometimes hand drawing or you know, making an explainer video, where our client was a high-tech company, it was a software company, so doing a proper video shoot would have been a little bit boring, but also very expensive, because you're trying to show all this stuff. So we did an explainer video where it was more like a, you know, black and white drawing, like a chalkboard drawing, that style of animation. And again, way lower budget, because of it just, there was a voiceover, it kept the pace going. The explainer video was drawing stuff on the screen. It was still showing some screenshots, but in a stylized version. So, you know, our graphic designer kind of drew out some screenshots, but they weren't photorealistic. They were just outlines of what it would be. But it was getting the message across of, this software is for this industry, and here's the results, and here's why you need it. You know, kind of had a clear path of what it was. And under 3 minutes, it got the whole concept across of a piece of software that was actually really complicated. So, but illustration in that art style can definitely be used versus real photo, real video, which sometimes isn't in the budget, or it's just hard to do.
Absolutely.
So yeah, cool.